as a whole, and it's the realities about COVID-19 and the political donation behind COVID-19. You know, we've been having it that this COVID-19 idea is a kind of political game that maybe our administrators, politicians all over the world are playing. Some people have gone to the extent to say that cultists are just doing their work. And so this time we shall be getting the realities and the maybe the political donations behind COVID-19. This time I want to begin with somebody who is in the house that they are trying to manage the situation. The government of Cameroon is trying to manage. Mr. Kedia Roberts, if you look at it, the Minister of Public Health have been brought down to tell him straight in the face by the parliament, some members of the parliament and individuals, that the embezzlement of funds for COVID-19 is just too much, more than 22 billion francs, bags of rice and other things. Maybe look, the management of COVID-19 Cameroon, how do you look at it?
It's an honor to be beside a judicial guru. You see, when you don't go to equity with dirty hands. Nature of the SDF condemns the Minister of Public Health, whereas he has not been accountable to Cameroonian, how he has been managing his 4 million of local projects. If you can't tell us how you've managed your 4 million of local project, then you want to challenge the minister. However, he is the member of parliament and needs to call for accountability. And when you are calling for accountability, the person becomes a suspect. But when you accuse somebody and say the person has stolen, then it's judicial violation of the person's right. Talking about the Minister of Public Health, Manauda Malachi, who is the youngest minister, which we applaud because we really need youth in the government. I'm of the CPDM, but I will say the truth, we really need youth in this government.
We'll still have to know whether he's a youth.
Leaders of today. And I said he's the youngest, okay. And we really need youth. I didn't say he's a youth because he's above 36, to be honest, but he was appointed when he was 36, when he was still a youth. And we applaud also to know that more than 75% of those that are sick of COVID-19 in Cameroon has been healed. We applaud also to the medical team what they have been doing, and most especially the presidential family of Cameroon. We saw Brenda Mbia bringing out videos of how they wash and clean hands to sensibilize young Cameroonians like her. We saw President Paul Biya removing 2 billion from his pocket. Many people will say that Mr. Paul Biya removing 2 billion from his pocket, maybe state fund, is because they are ignorant. They don't know that Mr. Paul Biya is into agriculture. And when we talk about billionaires in Cameroon, are those that are into agriculture, like the richest family in the Semak zone, the Moketes family, like the richest Cameroonian, Dampolion Dawara, and President Paul Biya, who is into agriculture. So those into agriculture, they have a lot of money. So President Paul Biya had been into agriculture even before he became president. So he has money. So he provided 2 billion for to assist in the fight against coronavirus. So most people are ignorant. They think that it's from state coffers, not knowing that he is an agriculture and he has his private business before he became president of the republic. Firstly, I would also like to conclude by saying that as much as we criticize and ask for accountability, which is right, but we should be able to applaud. Because if the member of parliament came out to first of all appreciate the work of the minister, that okay, fine, when you came up, Cameroon was the highest after South Africa in sub-Saharan Africa, but now Nigeria has beaten Cameroon by far. Ghana has beaten Cameroon, and many other countries have beaten Cameroon with the rise of COVID-19 in their country. So we are supposed to applaud. We know medical personnel that have lost their marital status, that their husbands send them away, that if you want to go and be treating people of COVID, go and stay in the hospital, not in my house. Those are people that have sacrificed a lot, which we are supposed to appreciate. We should learn to appreciate, congratulate the good work before we ask for accountability and criticize if we are doing that with good faith.
Dr. Busi Enes, if you look at the increase every day, the number of people who are diagnosed of COVID-19, and we hear him saying that at least Cameroon is better. And you as a teacher in the student milieu, what's your take about the treatment of COVID-19 or the management of COVID-19?
Mr. Mambo Williams, when you look at COVID-19, it's so dreadful. Whether I like it or not, it's real. And many people have died. I started in China, and thousands of people have died in America, Italy, and so it was sarcastic. You could see a lot of people died in Italy, and the fear factor came to Africa, and we thought that's all about us. And the bishop in Douala brought his herbal drugs, which healed a lot of people. It helped a lot of Cameroonians. And I want to say that looking at COVID-19, the Prime Minister and head of government was the chair, and a lot of measures were put by the Prime Ministers and head of government. And schools were closed for almost more than a month, Mr. Moderator. And I think that was a positive side of it, so that we could confine ourselves in our homes and do visual learning in school, which we did that in the university. And students in the primary sector and the secondary sector could find themselves learning through the television, which was, at the end of the day, how many Cameroonians have television at their homes? And it was so difficult for many children, and lights always on and off. So many children in primary school and secondary school, it was quite unfortunate for them to study through visual learning, because visual learning is online learning. And it was quite unfortunate, because we don't have the resources in Cameroon to learn visual learning. We don't have the resources. So I think that COVID-19 also have informed the Cameroonian government that they need to sit up on educational facilities in this country, because they are lacking. Cameroon is lacking behind in what concerns educational facilities and resources. And COVID-19 has proven that as the CPDM militant is saying, I kick against him on that, to say that our government needs to sit up on issues that matter in this country, in the educational sector, as you are saying, because when you look at the GCE, as they will be writing the GCE, you now understand that we don't have enough accommodation for our children, and they will need to create more centers. And you see that there are some schools that, even the university and other places, you see children going to school without their face masks. They are just putting it as a dressing, of a window dressing. So I think that we have to be serious. And I want to say that recently the Prime Minister and head of government came out and said that there will be accountability on the funds, because millions of money have been sent out for this COVID-19. Yeah. And he says that every stakeholder, there will be a lot of accountability to see whether it was effective. And lastly, Mr. Moderator, I was baffled one time when the government said that schools, that bars and nightclubs should be open. When COVID-19 is dreadful, bars and nightclubs are open and churches are not even open. So I want to look at the priority of the government, the scale of preference of the government. Are bars and restaurants more important than the church even? Are bars and restaurants more important than other sectors that government? Because these are sectors that people meet together. They dine together, they share together, and COVID-19 could be so sarcastic in points like this. Even the market, Mr. Moderator, opening markets where people are not even, there's no social and physical distance. So we say that some of these measures that government took were not quite appropriate, and they were quite untimely. And lastly, I want to end by saying that President Biya said that there was 2 billion to be used. And if you look at this 2 billion, how many of the resources, how many of the kits, how many of the COVID-19 kits, how many of the soaps, how many of the face masks reach our remote areas?
That was just his personal contribution.
How many persons had that, Mr. Moderator? No, you are just supporting. It was an issue. We need accountability to see how the money was used, Mr. Moderator.
Okay.
Because you could see people using the pockets in their chantiers. So this was poor. And I want to say that also, Cameroonians also have to be responsible as issue, because President Paul Biya will not come from Yaoundé to come and tell Cameroonians to put on their face masks. We have to be responsible. We have to be responsible and know that we have a communal way of life, living together. But I think that this is time that most of us have to be very responsible and also take our own preventive measures. Thank you.
I want to come to you, Mr. Item Armstrong. As a political analyst, some people say this thing has a kind of political donation, given that if you see the way the markets are crowded, people are not putting all their face masks, Some people talk of what happened in the U.S. About the Black Lives when George Floyd was killed, the population that went on the streets. People expected that if this thing was true, then of course the whole of U.S. would have been down now. What's your take about the political donation of this?
Mr. Moderator, maybe before I answer the question, let me throw some light on this issue of coronavirus. Coronavirus disease, which is equated as COVID-19, started sometime in China in December 2019, and that is why it has to be referred to as COVID-19. You know, there was SARS that occurred sometimes back that has characteristics similar to COVID-19, and COVID-19 started in Wuhan, a province in China, which today has affected more than 196 countries in the world. We know when it started in China in December, in January, the World Health Organization sent a team to Wuhan to really study the disease and maybe to find out some preventive measures or cure. And in that very January, they recorded the first death in Wuhan. And when they recorded this first death in Wuhan, the World Health Organization did not relax itself. It went further to declare the disease a world emergency concern, a disease which is a world emergency concern. Now, coming back, the coronavirus disease entered Cameroon in March, and the Cameroon government has not been really reluctant about the issue. They have been on their feet, even though they have their weaknesses as humans. The coronavirus entered Cameroon in March, and sometime in before the coming of the coronavirus, the government of Cameroon have been meeting with the various stakeholders to really see how to put on preventive measures so that the coronavirus doesn't intrude into its country. But it was unfortunate due to traveling and politicized the location, the strategic location of Cameroon. We have influx of Cameroonians. You know, Cameroon is a country that has many of its citizens out of the country. Because of that, many of them that were in the countries affected by coronavirus had to come back home.
But do you see this thing being politicized?
Yeah, let me come to your point.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is that the issue of COVID-19 might be politicized, but it didn't start in Cameroon or only in China. I mean, only in America. It started all over. It started in China and it has spread to all over the countries. If it was politicized, I would have expected that some countries that are not good in politics wouldn't have politicized it. For example, it would be vague to say that in Italy, where we have recorded thousands of deaths, or even you will not equate that kind of danger with politics.
When we say it has been politicized, you know, so many people, especially in Africa, have come up with some cure, as they say, but it is difficult for it to be used worldwide because of maybe the marginalization of Africans. Secondly, they are talking of the kind of monies that are being, you know, pumped into the economy of various countries, and they don't see anything.
Well, in African context, you know, Africa is referred to as the dark continent, and they are always lagging in everything. You know, it is a country that lives on begging somehow, if I might put it that way, because they always depend on aid and loans. So in that sense, I think those who are of the school of thought that it is politicized are those who think that the governments of Africa and Cameroon in particular are trying to raise up figures of coronavirus in order to get funds from the World Health Organization and other people of goodwill. But let me be honest to you, Cameroon is a country that is not really rich, even though we have natural resources that could sustain us, but they are underexploited. As such, and Cameroon in particular is facing a lot of crises. You will look at we have crisis on almost 4 fronts. You look at the Boko Haram, you look at the Anglophone crisis, you look at the poverty that is in Cameroon, and even the coronavirus that has intruded. If the government does not stand on its feet to beg for hands from the international community, on which other people equate it to be politicized.
Okay, before I come to Mr. Njomo Siri, do you see, according to you, is Cameroon really poor? Is it that because all the resources we have agriculture, we have oil and so on, but don't you think that these monies are in few hands? Yeah. Embezzlement is in high rates.
Yes.
Of course, you are correct. When I say the country is poor, you know, I evaluate it based on the living standard of, or in short, of all Cameroonians.
Okay,
Cameroon as a country is not a country of an individual. As such, if the head of state, if few ministers and maybe directors are rich, we cannot draw a logical conclusion that the country is rich, because the problem that Africans are facing in general, and Cameroon in particular, is that the wealth of the nation is in few hands, and it is a country in which they are building hegemony, where a particular family continue becoming rich and rich and rich and rich, and the other continue going poorer, and they beg.
Okay.
At the end, those who are poorer start begging. So, to end with your question, I would say that Cameroon is not poor per se, but the way the resources are managed,
that is in mismanagement
of funds,
have caused the people who look at the country to be poor, and some of us who stay in the country to feel the country as being poor, and as such, it is better drawing a conclusion that the country is poor.
Okay, before I come to Mr. Njomo Siri, let me just take one message here. He says, nice program, nice team. I wish Cyril maintains his stand. If not, he and his party will be slow today by the giant party. Thanks. Okay, these gentlemen, maybe they are talking of the presence of the CPGM representative. Okay, let me come to Mr. Njomo Siri. Mr. Njomo Siri, COVID-19 has taken too long. What has the political parties between, especially the Cameroon Renaissance movement, because so many people say that the CPJ and government of President Pobia has been doing just a lot, but what are the other parties doing?
I'm going to write away where our learned panelist, Mr. Item Armstrong, ended. He was talking about concentration of wealth. And I will say this while quoting Plato. Plato is one of the founding father of philosophy. He said, while creating the state, the ideology was not to concentrate disproportionately power or wealth in the hands of some few individuals, but it was to permit to the common class to access social status. And COVID-19 is just one of those many items, aspects of life that has exposed the nakedness of the bias regime. And today, as to commemorate that, you have brought to our platform a big liar. I have been able to establish at least 5 lies. I really respect the learned panelists who left so many kilometers to join us on the platform. And I will have been looking for substitute to lies, but what he said can only be attributed to that. The first one is that the Minister of Public Health, Maladou Malachi, joined the government when he was 36. It's a fat lie.
That might not be 36. It's not his answer.
Yes.
I don't want to take on it.
Yes.
No, that might not be 36.
No, he has the
We
floor.
have to
He has the
put
floor.
That might not be 36.
Yes.
He's not even a youth.
He has the
Not a
floor.
youth.
Secondly,
Let's be honest
he
about
goes further and says, Honorable Jean-Michel Ninche was simply caricaturing what the Minister of Public Health is doing. And I want to bring to you some evidence. And he went further to say,
those are not my words.
big mistakes. He says that Cameroon
Those are not my words.
today
So you are lying too.
that Cameroon today seconds Nigeria, Ghana.
No.
It's not true.
How many people are infected in Nigeria and
Look
Ghana?
at the
Yeah, we
population
are
of
coming.
Nigeria.
We are coming to that.
Look at the
Infected, not their
population. Look at the
population.
We are
population.
coming. We are coming to that. We are coming. coming to that place. I want to introduce all the panelists. We'll come back to contradict our
I promise to be as gentle as possible on the platform.
Yes, please.
And what the televiewer was saying in the message was that I should remain gentle. But you are seeing where the fight is coming from. No, I have been a karateka before. You should remind them. I have been a Sentinua karateka.
So what has
so I wanted to make that point so that people should not bring trouble into my talk.
Yes.
I'm proceeding.
Yes.
In a scale of, in a ratio of 50 to on 1,000 people, that is the paper that Jean-Michel Ninche was using on an interview he granted to Equinox recently. He said that Cameroon as of now is at 54 in a ratio of 1,000 people. And Nigeria that has been cited here was at 47. Ghana was at 51. So I want to understand the statistic that has been used, evidence-based, to say that Cameroon now seconds Ghana and Nigeria in terms of COVID-19 patients. I want to push forward, a little bit forward, about facts to show that the Minister of Public Health has mismanaged state fund, because I'm also part of those Cameroonians who thinks that light investigation needs to be placed on the management of the COVID-19 funds. For example, Jean-Michel Ninche quoted some situation that when you go to the COVID-19 health centers, the makeshift centers that have been made around, they are simulative patients. People that have been asked to go to the hospital and pretend that they are sick.
We are still to have that evidence.
There's no facts. There's no facts.
Just like what we are talking, because most of the times,
we've seen some who have died.
Okay, because as we are in communication, it's important that we sometimes share our source.
Okay.
Newspaper have carried this. As I talk, if you go to Le Messager of today, you are going to read article on that.
Okay.
And so many other French newspaper, because they are relating what Jean-Michel Ninche said, and that is what brought this topic. Because after that, the Prime Minister came out, and if you permit me to really push forward, I'm going to bring how the Prime Minister came in and brought
15
sanity.
seconds.
Yes. And so Jean-Michel Ninche went further to say that, and when they say each patient, to cure each patient is close to 3.5 million to 4 million in the 15 to 16 days that they spend under quarantine. He says that those people will go and simulate for 2 days, then they will spend some few cash on them, and the rest is multiplied and sent in private pockets. Okay. And they went further to say that it is not an individual who is responsible, because he was given the latitude to give contract without passing through the public contract regulatory mechanism. Yes. It was mostly gray, two party. It was a discussion between friends. It means that the Cameroonian on the street, the contractor on the street, the contractor that knows nobody and has only his paper as an enterprise, could not be accessible to tender any contract, any bid for this kind of market. It means that we are talking of 22 billion that has been managed by an individual, and there is no traceability. There is no receipt somewhere.
Okay.
That shows that. And some small example were taken. Simple face mark that you can pick them at 1,300 were costed at 13,000 francs. Simple a test tube.
Wow.
You are not getting it from me, Ketia.
Okay.
Are you getting me? So he brought all those examples to say that even the Mercurial that was denied years back, today, because the Minister of Finance, Esime Menye, who is now in the diaspora in Ting Air, was the one who
that is a former Minister of Finance.
Former Minister of Finance in 2009. And 11 years after, Cameroon have not been able to reform. And when you have an orchestrated system put in place like that, you are allowing somebody on our platform to tell Cameroonian that they can put their faith in the government of Mr.
Okay,
Abia? How possible?
let me come to Mr. Kedia Robert. If you look at it very well, first of all, the Cameroon government or the Ministry of Health did not pass through the contractors who was supposed to maybe purchase COVID-19 maybe kits. Maybe the viewers who want to, if you have an idea, we want to know why you've been following up and you are in-house. We want to know why he decided to like do it by himself. Then secondly, do you see the work on ground to be worth the multi-billions of francs that they are talking about?
Firstly, we talk about your first question had to do with
the contractor of public health who was supposed to buy the COVID-19 was sidelined.
Cameroonians know that it was an emergency where there was shortage all over the world. Even kits were not enough in America and in Europe. So it was an emergency. And when it comes to emergency, there are certain decisions that have been taken. And when we talk about the budget, we should also know that most of these budgets were not in the private account of the Minister of Public Health. It was in the state budget, which followed the normal procedure. So we should be able to say this.
Nice.
To go further.
No, somebody, you are the one saying that you should be more gentle, but another person is talking, you want to talk.
Let him finish, then you wait.
You are the one saying that you want to be gentle. No, Mr. Moderator, let him talk.
Mr. Kezia,
Let him talk.
you say the budget wasn't under the Ministry of Finance.
Yes, I still say that. I said the money was not under the Minister of Public Health. Not
Okay,
Minister of Finance.
sorry.
We should not be
Public Health.
Yeah. That's what I said.
No, that's not what you said. You said
Okay.
the money was not under the
I said the money was not
Public Health.
under the Minister. The money was not under the Minister of
So
Public
Public
Health.
Health,
It's
yes.
in the state coffers.
Okay, yeah.
All right. To go further, when intellectuals are debating and viewers are looking, when I come up to say the minister, present Minister of Public Works, when he was appointed, he was 36 years, and somebody told me it's a
disagree with
lie.
that.
I expect that person to be mature enough to give me the age of
let's keep that aside.
Looking at the human development, looking at the physiology of him, of the person, he's not that. Let's keep the age.
All right.
We are looking at the management.
The management is wrong.
Secondly,
Yes.
no, I need to debunk on certain things.
Yes.
The representative of a political party that has no representative in the whole world or in the country said that I made a caricature of the honorable. I don't like how blaspheme and put words into people's mouth. I simply said that we don't go to equity with dirty hands. You need to give us, be accountable first for your own 4 millions of developmental projects before you start to judge another person. Simple.
Okay.
And that is it. To go further, I'm still talking.
Yeah.
I'm still talking.
You expect him to come to another kitchen and giving
Now,
yes, so that
Mr.
is people
Kezia
account well.
Mr.
He did account the party
let's
and
go
to the
straight
constituency. Do you live in that constituency?
Yes, we are coming to you. Mr. Kezia is up. Please, what we wish to know
When
is
an
so many
analyst
people
starts
say
to talk about the kitchen of a panelist
Kezia,
mother,
you're
so
answerable.
that the way of reasoning, I don't know, but I will not want to go there. But let to join the panelist that, excuse me please.
You are answerable
You know,
to
as
the
a
viewers.
mature journalist, you should be able
Please,
to tell the panelist not to call the mother
Answer the question
please,
that
please.
was
educate your panelist
Yes.
first.
Answer the question that was
Who are you to talk about the kitchen of my mother?
Answer the
See, that's
question.
what an analyst is.
When you put
Mr. Njomo.
Is that what you come to analyze?
Okay.
how you could pick.
Mr.
You don't talk
Njomosiri,
about my late mother's kitchen.
please.
The
Mr.
matter is
Kezia is up. Mr.
Don't
Kezia
talk
is
about
up.
my late mother.
Mr. Njomosiri, please. Mr. Kezia is up. What
No,
our
but I feel
viewers,
that, we need to
what
use
our-
words that
yes,
are-
what our viewers
are
want to
welcome.
know is,
Welcome.
you know, people feel bad that the contractor is part of the Ministry of Health and was sidelined. Secondly, what is on ground? More than 22 billion francs. Because we know other international organizations have brought in money. From the beginning, it should be going more than 50 billion, but now we are talking of more than 22 billion.
As I earlier said,
Yeah.
the member of parliament, we know the parliament is out to do balance and check with the various arms of government.
Yes.
And the member of parliament came up to ask for questioning, which is within his jurisdiction, to ask for questioning. But when he starts to say this person has embezzled, he is not a judge. That's the first aspect. Secondly, he has called for a setup, inquiry of investigation.
Yeah.
Cameroonians are supposed to be humble to look for the outcome. We have seen outcome in this country, which many people are shocked. They thought that the government would be this. No. You remember the Ngambu incident?
Yeah.
Members of government came out to say the military is this, the military is that. But when the head of state, the father of the nation, put on an inquiry and investigated, we saw the outcome.
Some people say that was just one out of so many.
We've seen. You want me to be naming or keep on naming?
Okay.
If you but to go further is
Yes.
that when an inquiry of investigation is being asked to be put in place for investigation,
Yeah.
we should wait for that investigation and wait for the outcome before we start casting blames.
Okay.
That is how we should act like Republicans. Now, going further, an analyst is someone that analyzes and gives the weak.
Mr.
I'll come to you.
Yeah,
it's my
Mr.
turn.
Kezia, I just want us to.
All of them have been
go-
disturbing me.
Yeah,
I'm still
Now,
on it.
I'm trying to put some serenity in our discussion.
No,
here.
no, I'm not going
so
out. I'm
can
not
I
going
just say that we focus on
Of
what
course,
we are
of course.
talking? I asked you two questions. What is on ground? Is it worth 22 billion and above? And sidelining the contractor in the ministry.
As from the last data
Yeah.
I got last Monday, about 16,000 and hundreds have been infected,
Okay.
and more than 14,000 have been healed. When you calculate more than 14,000 something and 16,000 something, you know the percentage of those that have been healed, which I gave it that is about 25%. The minister gave it out, everybody knows the statistic. He let everybody prove me wrong, that it's all over social media. That is a proof to say that the government has worked very well. To go further, sorry, I'm not here to pinpoint on analysts, no. When you're an analyst, you give the weaknesses and you give the successes to be neutral. I will beg our panelists to be able to, first of all, appreciate the good work before they condemn. Is that right?
That's a general advice.
Yes. And you are free to condemn and appreciate.
Okay.
When you condemn without appreciating one good thing, you are being biased, and that disqualifies you for good analysis.
Dr. Busi, if you look at it, we are looking at COVID-19 and the way it has been managed in Cameroon and the world. Some people say America and some other countries that claim to be maybe the big eight and big whatsoever are still to prove their worth as far as this COVID-19 is concerned. Do you see that to be true?
Mr. Moderator, COVID-19 is a pandemic. It's just like HIV/AIDS.
Okay.
And to treat, you cannot treat HIV/AIDS on a day. COVID-19 is a pandemic, and a pandemic is catastrophe. It brings catastrophe. Let's be honest about this. But the issue here in Cameroon is that on daily basis we get the facts that many persons are dying of COVID-19, but we don't see, especially let's say the Southwest region. Let's see the statistics of patients in the Southwest region. Okay. Let's see the number of centers that have been created by the government in the Southwest region.
Yeah,
go to the Northwest region, go to the East region. Let's know, Mr. Moderator, the issue here is that some of these statistics, people feel that is foul. It's not correct. And that is why we need accountability. And that is why we also need accountability on the funds of COVID-19.
So you are saying that it could be true, but because evidences are not given.
We need evidence. We need empirical evidence. And I want to say that, first of all, let's appreciate the update of the Minister of Public Health. I appreciate his update for us to be current on what is happening. But my issue is that we are talking of COVID-19 that is dreadful. I don't know the number of COVID-19 patients in Boya. I don't know the number of centers here, health centers here for COVID-19 patients in Boya. And do you know that it came a time in this country where normal patients were afraid to go to the hospital because they were being afraid that they will be stigmatized, they were being afraid of the COVID-19 patients. But now, the government struggled to create centers. Where are these centers? We are not seeing majority of these centers. What we want is proof. And COVID-19 is not only something that can be solved by the government because it's rubbish.
Okay.
Professor Maurice Kamto came up one time, wanted to support the government. and we saw how the kits were denied to collect. The government did not receive him. He was not welcome.
That's good faith.
Professor Maurice Kamto was not welcome. We have to be judged to. It's our country.
But the backup that was given by the government.
We just have
Please.
Okay, looking at the Minister of Territorial Administration, the
Yes.
number of, let's say the number of the money that has been given and the number of kits that were being bought. Let's talk of accountability. You and I, even you seated here, Mr. Kedia, have you received any face masks from the government? Many people have even received this from. Listen. Many people have even received this from non-governmental organizations, from goodwill persons. And I want to say that we need accountability. At times we hear figures in this country, and that's why the Prime Minister and Head of Government, which I respect, Chief Dr. John Gute, has called for effective investigation.
Okay,
May I just land, sir?
Okay.
So we need facts. And I want to end by saying that as gentlemen in the club, because panelists are gentlemen, we should respect some of our words. We talk to each other. We should be more gentle. And Mr. Kedia, you as a Republican as you are, you should be more humble as a Republican.
No way they insult my dead mother's kitchen.
No, please.
Mr. Item Armstrong, let me come to you. At once, we have been having, if we talk of aid from international organization, individuals, parastatals, and so on, we have been having so much as far as that is concerned. But at one time, till today, we've not heard of the rice that was given out and other aids. And the NGOs complain that at times when they come, they tell them to pass through the government. These things are given to the government. So what the government give out is what the NGOs have given to them.
Mr. Mambo,
Yes.
the truth about COVID-19 in Cameroon context is that, like viewers say, it is politicized.
Yeah.
The laws in the countries are so much personalized to the government in such a way that anybody who wants to have anything in this country should first of all consult the government before having it. That is why you hear NGO crying, and you hear many people have contributed, even business people, like you made mention here, private Cameroonians who are not government officials have sipped in millions of francs CFA. Partners, international partners like China have sipped in. The World Health Organization have given a lot, as well as the President of the Republic has also made gestures. And you will also agree with me that the finance of many ministries were reduced. That is what were reduced in order to finance COVID.
Which means we should be talking over 200
yeah,
billion.
That is to say that the funds related to COVID-19 is enormous to sustain this. That is to help us completely manage, lavish or manage the coronavirus. But the difficulties we have in Cameroon is accountability. Okay. And when we talk about accountability, who receives the funds and who is accountable for the expenses of the funds? And once a coronavirus patient is detected, what are the procedures and how much? Because when they give us figures of COVID-19 patients, they should as well be giving us figures of maybe the money in the coffer that has been contributed by goodwill. Let me say that by people of goodwill.
Yeah.
And now, to be honest with you, like my doctor that I respect in the panel said, I have not received even a face mask from the government. And even the face mask, the local produced face masks that are supposed to be cheaper, they are even more expensive because they are even making the material that they use for the face mask more expensive. As per the imported face mask, it's even bizarre because many Cameroonians are afraid that they are contaminated and those that come from the government are even more costly.
We hear some that came from China and people were criticizing that maybe it has been contaminated.
Yeah, people in a pandemic era, at this one, everybody has to take his personal measures. You know, the government gave numerous measures.
Okay.
to combat coronavirus, but people also took their own measures. You cannot condemn them for saying that those that left, we have been blaming the West for not being real to us.
Okay.
So you also agree with me that there have been a controversy over the black race as this coronavirus is concerned, that the black race is too strong to apprehend the coronavirus, even though there are black people dying of the coronavirus. So it's with this mentality that most African countries feel that the white man has never loved a black man. It's left to them, it's their own discretion to interpret that way, even though it might not be true. So the COVID-19 funds in Cameroon, to be honest to you, there is no accountability. And it is more or less saying that it is an opportunity to many. When my panelists mentioned of 3 million and above to cater for one coronavirus patient. And now we have about 300,000.
No.
It's 300,000 per day.
Yes, per day.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's per day. No, so 300 million and above. Now we have 16,000, as the CPDM representative said here. Multiply 16,000 patients per times 3 million. I think Cameroon government can even have that kind of money. At one point, we make issues to appear fictitious to have a good name. The Cameroon government should be real. To be real, because, to be honest, many people were blaming the government at one point. When a patient goes to the hospital, he's not diagnosed with coronavirus. And when he dies, it's blamed. And now there were many Cameroonians who were murmuring behind that it appears when you die, and you are declared a patient, there is an amount of money that the doctor gets from the government to enrich themselves.
Okay.
So I might not have enough fact, but those are the mindset that Cameroonians have. And I'm calling on the Cameroonian government to be real when we talk of coronavirus, because it is, I even heard at one point people saying that the World Health Organization have made a statement that we should be ready to live with coronavirus as we are living with HIV/AIDS. So it appears at one point there's no need for our concern.
Okay, Mr. Njomo Siri, as a politician, it is said coronavirus or COVID-19 has been used as a way to settle scores among politicians. The way some politicians have been dying is so suspicious, and it is put under coronavirus or COVID-19.
One thing is sure, Mr. Mwambo, is that Cameroonians now know truly their fathers. The early hours of this dreaded pandemic saw an intervention from the Cameroon Renaissance movement, but through a distinct arm called Survivor Cameroon, Suivi Cameroon. An arm that mobilized in the space of 3 days over 200 million, and the Yaoundé administration caught fever, thinking that it was going to refrain the goodwill of Cameroonians, both nationally and in the diaspora. But instead, because of trust, they went further to even send more money. And all of us here, you and I, as I talk, my friend just there they are just sending me a message that they are back from the field in Cham. Yesterday, it was the case of Kolofata. So many, all community, even here in Boya, they came to my 17. Just that we don't have the government money to come and meet Dr. Busi in the university and give his own personally. But if you ask the taxi driver at my 17, they will tell you that they receive. I personally, I share face mark at the Boya checkpoint here in Wokoko. So, what are we talking about? But I always like to add this on my discussion before I continue. We have only one fatherland.
Yeah.
I sit here, and every responsible gentleman here have the responsibility to protect it for the future generation. And as you know, and you will likely not differ with me, that the crisis of tomorrow are surely the problem that will shy away from today. And so we must do everything to do a table rasa on issues of today. And COVID-19 is appearing as something that if we don't treat it well, the mismanagement of one administration of the COVID-19 and the fund will surely lead to a great disaster in the future. Then, for those who are used to follow, there's a program every Saturday morning on the CMTV Southwest. They used to make call in all the subdivision, the division of
to have statistics.
Yes, to have statistics. Neighborhoods like Lebialem reported that they don't have any test center or talk even of a test kit. A whole department. And Zian was reporting only one health center in the whole Zian. Manfred the same. No, we should not take Fako and make Southwest.
No.
It's not because we have some few testing center in Fako. Even
and the regional delegate came on air at one
air.
time and said they don't have statistics as such.
They don't have. They wish to be testing as much Cameroonian as possible, but they don't have the test kits.
Okay.
Now, excuse me,
Yes.
I'm going to learn. You know,
Okay.
I don't keep your flow. So, we're talking of the Minister of Territory and Administration. That,
After this, maybe we'll have a round to conclude.
And one of the biggest fallacy that who haunts him throughout his stay in the government. He said that Mr. Bia have coughed out 2 billion. And mistakenly, I have heard another town crier here repeat the same thing. No, Mr. Bia himself, when he was addressing Cameroonian on the 19th of May 2020, did not mention anything about the 2 billion. Do you really think that if this money had come from his pocket, he would really come out and not talk about it? What? Contrarily, what he talked about was the 1 billion state budget that he opened for every goodwill to contribute so that it could benefit the mass. Okay. I'm going to learn with the Okari rice and the bucket that was sent from the from Yaoundé to the various division. If they are counting part of the money that was used to transport, then we are going to hold them accountable because they say bucket here. And tell me, what was the use of those 10 liters bucket that is used to carry water and to bathe in the toilet?
And some came from
was
abroad.
that really, is that a reposting kit?
Okay.
Then as for the Oka rice, they said that they were sending the bucket, the soap plus the rice, and that it is the divisional officer and it's the governor that kept the rice. And the population are still asking them. Nobody has received even a cup of rice.
The administrators have not testified that they received.
Okay. Light into this issue.
Okay. Now there's something all of us are avoiding, the political part of it, and I would like why we are concluding, because it is known that COVID-19 has been used to settle scores amongst politicians. Some evidence like the mayor of Limbe 2, Rodan Nimboa. It was said that the way he died was so suspicious, but they say it's COVID-19, and so many other people. So I want us to know, could it be that politicizing COVID-19, that's one of the way they have been doing to settle score. Okay, we are concluding. Yeah. Each of us has 1 minute.
I'll use my 1 minute judiciously. Before I want to talk, Mr. Moderator, permit me, I respect Mr. Njomo Siri, the politician, a lot. But I think that there was that when we call people town crier, we call people names. Many a times have been called that too. Other names. When you call, it's something you're using. I know you're using for the CPD and militant, but we should at least address people by names. We should address people by. Sorry, please. We should address people by name with a lot of dignity and respect because we are gentlemen. I want to also say that COVID-19 just recently, when COVID-19 started, was dreadful. And it ravaged the society, whether we like it or not. It was not political. It was like in the West, and it was like a capitalist problem with the communist problem, China and America. But after that experiment, it became a war problem. And though it's a bit political, but I want to look at the third part of it. It's a pandemic. Let's be honest about it. Those who have been put in position of responsibility to play with the mindset of other persons, that we are psychologically killing ourselves. Who is fooling who? We should be honest in this country. I will not focus on that political tic-tac. I want to look at the international witness of COVID-19. And I will start with WHO. When COVID-19 became something of the world, a global challenge, because COVID-19 is a global challenge. Everybody faced that catastrophe. There were countries like Tanzania. The president came up with a herbal drug, but WHO did not authorize it to be used. Bishop Kledaye in Douala brought up his herbal drugs. We know that herbal drugs have healed Africans. We have our way of life. They have to accept our way of life and so on. I want to say that this African way of life could be accepted by the international scene, because the West, WHO, they are working on the minds of Africans to keep on marginalizing us. And when you look at the statistics in Africa, it's not like high like that of the West. And also, Mr. Mojeto, look at the issue of cars. If COVID-19 is dreadful, will WHO be sending cars to Yaoundé? Why? We don't need such luxurious cars. Those are the politics we are saying that the international world is playing politics with COVID-19, especially WHO. I'm not well satisfied with them. How will you be sending luxurious cars to the regional delegation of public health in Yaoundé when we don't have centers for COVID-19, when we don't have all these test kits, Mr. Mojeto? It's really a bizarre. And I want to also end by saying that we should, as African, leadership is very important, whether we like it or not. And we have to start changing our psychic, the way we think as Africans, to solve our own problems in an African way. Thank you.
Okay, while you are concluding, don't you think that all these monies, no, he's concluding on his own side, I'm coming to all these monies that has been used in Cameroon and worldwide, people have been coming up with treatment and evidences that they have been treating people. This money would have been used to buy these drugs or concoction that these people came up with to cure people at once, than to be buying expensive cars, as he said.
The management of coronavirus really is a problem in Cameroon, as I said, because if you look, the money you are making mention of, let's come to think of it. Southwest does not have a lab to test COVID-19. Once a sample is, once you have detected, it is taken to Yaoundé. Then where is the numerous amount of money coming from? I mean, going to?
We understand.
There are kits. Yeah. I'm talking a lab. You should draw a dichotomy between a kit and a lab. Okay. Now, they are inadequate ventilators. Even America, that is one of the world richest countries, complain that they are not having adequate ventilators. Then how much more of Cameroon? When the Nigerian government was talking of about 15, talking at one time about 100, and the Cameroon government, I'm not sure they have up to 10. We have inadequate ventilators. How many does Cameroon government have? Those are things that they are not telling us. But those are things that are vital to cure, to sustain a coronavirus patient. When we talk about coronavirus, there were many people, school of thought, who felt that hygiene is one of the issues to combat coronavirus. But where is the water? We don't first of all have running water. Then how can we wash our hands? So priority should be given to some of those things. When we talk about coronavirus, many Cameroonians live in the informal sector. About 80% of Cameroonians live in the informal sector, where they live from hand to mouth. Yeah. Where are the jobs to enable Cameroonians maybe live from their houses to their offices and then back to their home? So a Cameroonian is left to toil from day to day to survive. And with this, it is just obvious that the pandemic will spread. Okay. And then let me tell you, apart from the money, other countries had to put a lockdown on their nation to prevent the spread of coronavirus. But the selfish nature of our government, how much they will lose from taxes, how much they might lose from this and that, prevented them.
Mr. Armstrong, even international bodies and individual international came up to say Africa cannot have the kind of lockdown that they have
but
in
Nigerian,
the West.
Lagos State and Abuja had a lockdown over months, and they survived. Okay. And that is why you see, at one point,
Ghana had it.
Let me learn. At one point, Cameroon speeded and they were ahead of Nigeria because Nigeria had to put down a mechanism to prevent the spread. security measures have been one of the measures put in Cameroon to fight everything, including health. I don't think it is adequate.
Have you not seen that Africa has proven,
because it is an unseen enemy?
What is your take with the popular idea that Africa has proven that it's above the West as far as this COVID-19 is concerned, because it has come up with a lot of medication, a lot of good management of.
In fact, history will tell you that Africans are strong. During the slave trade era, you realize that what Americans and many other Western countries, Asia and many others, are being proud of today, those are innovations that were brought up by slaves who were taken to Europe, and it was their hands, their effort. Even though the white man is sincere at one point, that leads, and he has a good heart. Now, what they're saying that Africans are stronger in the face of coronavirus is that Africans have learned that they cannot always depend on the West. And I want to also call on the government to learn that they must not always depend on the West to survive. That is why people enter their butches. They have to struggle to look at their herbs to see why, because the West have proven that they cannot. People died in their numbers in America, people died in their numbers in Italy, people died in their numbers in Germany, and the black man say, hey, we are helpless. The people that we depend on as our gods have failed at this point, and that is why they have proved, even though the selfish nature of the West as well has prevented them from endorsing our medications, but it has given us a life.
Before I come to
Mr. Moderator, please, let me add one thing. Not up to 10 seconds. Let me add one thing, please, with due respect, please, Mr. Keja. There is one other issue that I feel very pathetic about the West. The West wanted to test their vaccine here in Africa.
Yes.
There's COVID-19 that is ravaging the West.
Seriously.
Seriously.
They want to
it's
test in
dreadful.
Africa.
They want to come and test their vaccines in Africa. How that is what we call as the issue of racism, and I don't know.
Don't you think that our administration in Africa have made us to look weak?
Our governance system needs to be strong.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say.
Mr. Mambo, before you conclude the other panel, I want to also call on the head of state. It has been something that has been on my mind, to be an example. You know, he has appeared on public media severally. When he gave the order that we should not, even when he was announcing that nobody should be in public place without a mask, he never wore a mask. So it is really, it's not exemplary. And to many Cameroonians, it was not something to emulate.
Maybe measures have been taken before he appears in.
No, there's nothing like measures. It should be an example. And I expect that
he has gotten you.
He's watching. That first man should be bought. He should have his own.
He's watching.
And say that this is an example.
Mr. Kezia, with all what he has said, don't you see that the administration in Africa and Cameroon is so corrupt that with all what Africa has done that can solve this problem, yet the administrations in Africa and Cameroon cannot take a decision to say that, okay, we are using these concoctions, we are using these drugs to stop all these things?
You see, we have become much more of critics than realists.
Okay.
The truth is, when you look at the death rate in the whole world with regards to continent, because right now, as we are talking, after North America, the next continent that has a country with the highest rate is Brazil.
Yeah.
So when you look at all these death rates,
It's the country.
No, but it's a continent.
I said going off.
Okay,
continue.
continue.
Right on,
I
right on.
said looking at continent.
Yes.
For instance, you go to North America.
Yes.
America has the
Different
the
South,
highest death rate. You go to Latin America, which is South American continent. Brazil has the highest death rate. You see, Mr. Wambo, we are all panelists and we are here to sell our personalities and not to disgrace ourselves or start to insult panelists, their dead mother's kitchen, and to call people.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, don't stop! Don't stop!
No, Mr. Keja, Mr. Keja, Mr. Keja, it's an overstatement. Mr. Keja, that was already no. Mr. Keja, you are repeating one and the same thing. I think that we have solved that problem already, sir.
You didn't ask him to apologize.
I told him to be gentle. He will do that off air.
You insult somebody and you go and do it off air.
He will do that off air.
You don't promote it.
He will do that off air.
When you insult somebody on air,
No. Question,
We're
sir.
seeing that happening.
No.
All right. Let's go further to say, as I earlier said, with regards to the death rate, the continent that is doing so well. Let me go further to talk about Cameroon in particular. We'll talk about the contribution of political party. Cabral Ibi, who has definitely the youngest parliamentarian in Cameroon, 32 years, we saw that party going to Paul Atangaji to get authorization to share their kits.
Should authorization be taken before? No. It's terrible. Should we get authorization to share this in this country when people are dying, Mr. Moderator?
Okay.
La loi, c'est la loi.
No. What law?
Let's go for
Can you?
I'm still going ahead. But
do you see?
I already answered you by saying that. I already answered you by saying that you are talking about African continent, right?
Yes.
Good. And I answer you very clear in English language. So they are talking about the fact that African continent has the lowest death rate. It simply means that they are better off. Okay. And I still have my time. Why will you ask me a question and make a sentence?
Yes.
Because you're roving around.
Let's go for
Anchor on your point.
As I was saying,
Yes.
the party of Cabral Libi went to the minister, close to the Minister of Territorial Administration, and they got the authorization to share their kit. But the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, if their party raised money to share kit, they will go there. But there was some polemic and confusion because people didn't know if it was a party or a society, because there was a mix-up between a civil society or an organization, which the name was just called here. So those are the type of problem. Talking about the expenditure, we know that per day, we know that each person spent 300,000. We know that 14 centers have been created in Cameroon. We know that test kit has been bought. More than 70,000 was given to Paul Atanganji to share to children writing exams. And we know all the statistics on how expenditures have been done. Talking about test labs, sorry, it was the first 2 months that when this crisis started, all tests were being done in Yaoundé. But right now, as we speak, tests have been done in all 10 regions on Cameroon. So I just want to clarify that.
That's why Dr.
Then to go further to talk about the outing of President Paul Biya, His Excellency.
Yes.
You see, when people have contributed, and as the head of state, and you come to your public speech, you cannot say that I contributed 2 billion. No, we should be realistic. He's the president. That is his personal gift. He does not need to come and sing it on air.
But we need accountability.
Yes, that's why we say accountability is normal. An inquiry will be set up, and we should wait for the outing.
Yes.
Borders of Cameroon, of the Republic of Cameroon, were closed. But when we talk about border closed, airports are always open for some emergency goods like the test kit that came from China. So that those are the aspects that we should talk about. We should first of all appreciate the good work before we criticize it. That will be a good in analysis, and not stop and start talking about things that don't make sense on the panel.
Let me just read a few messages before you conclude. How can someone be in a bar with a mask? Okay, somebody just responded. This one says, the reopening of bars in Cameroon has caused people to feel this issue is some sort of a political game. I could rather think churches should be reopened and not bars because Christians can be controlled. Okay. It's Derek from Yaoundé. Then the next is, we are not even serious in solving this issue of COVID-19. What has happened to the treatment which at one moment a man of God, Cleda, said he had? Okay. Thank you so very much for your responses. Now, let me come to you. You were like very hot inside.
Yes,
Can you release yourself?
Yes, I just wanted to remark here, together with my learned panelists. That,
we'll just go to the point down to
yes. We have noticed here a different temperature because of lesson givers. And it's very common of a political party, which I reserve myself to bring polemics. So to ride along with your question, listen, Mr. Ngwambo, they promised that they were to make the 14 center that again. When you talk where people follow news, it's different from when you go and gather children and talk to them. All these 14 centers, they are on papers, but they don't exist. If they exist, tell me anyone here in the Southwest.
Who are the children?
People should not just come on air and make noise. This was announced on news, but it does not exist practically. I'm still telling you that here in the Southwest, just as Mr. Item says, if a case becomes very critical, they move it to Douala. That is where you have a center. Here we just test.
It is documented.
No matter how you call it, sir, no matter how you call it, we don't have it here. So when people travel from abroad and they come homeland, they should be able to ask questions of what is happening home. Now,
No, we don't have
Go on,
we don't have
please,
where a
go on.
problem-
Your mic is on there, sister. Please, we are rounding this topic,
Few
please.
centers that cannot accommodate everybody, and we have not even decentralized.
There is no
the
country
centers.
that has
Okay,
center that
dear
can. There
panelists.
is no country that has center that can accommodate.
Okay, dear panelists, please. Somebody is up. Dear panelists, please. Yes, please.
as for the politicking behind the COVID-19, I will reserve myself from saying that the cause of some person death was related or orchestrated by the ruling government. Apart from the negligence, yes. If the death that resulted from the negligence while they were in the hospital, because we have known of medical doctors who were out to cure COVID-19 cases that finally claimed their life, I want to use this opportunity to extend a word of condolence to their families. May their soul rest in peace. And also some of our politicians that unfortunately we have known the secretary of the Pews Party, we have known the former president of the Commission of Human Rights. Yes, and a host of Dr. Frank, who was a very good friend that also died, the former contestant to the 2018, yes, Prophet Frank, and so many other people. But I don't have the weakness to think that it was orchestrated by a government. Yes. I really
I said politicians.
No, I
did not say the
don't
government.
have that weakness to think that it was a cause of a politician. But deeply in me, I believe that we could do better.
Okay.
The management of this pandemic that has caused a lot of harm, untold suffering and misery around the world could be managed properly here in Cameroon. Notably, the audience that was granted to Bishop Kleda during the just ended parliamentary session of June was not an honorific audience. He has brought solution for a problem that is ravaging life, and he was supposed to be given an attention. We have had people cough out money, 50 billion from Amurugu Belinga, sent to him straight. But the government, up to now, we understand that the government does not want to open themselves and pronounce openly that they have allowed him to function. But we want to hear that he has been given some incentive to facilitate his work. I heard recently the Prime Minister, Chief Dr. John Gute, having a meeting, an audio meeting or digital meeting with the president of JICA to tell him how the government treasury measures are working, because these are softening measures that the government has put in place to help industry rebound back. But we are still within COVID-19, and if we cannot have food, I don't know whether we are talking if any of us had breakfast. In my house, I used to eat 3 times. It's getting very difficult. Maybe our friend who came from Douala, they are fine there. I'm telling you that we are not able to feed. And before I know, I thought it was my issue alone. I went on the streets, because when something becomes very serious, you need to find out whether your neighbor are. As I thought, we don't have light in my city because most students have not paid their bills. I'm telling you that we are feeling the impact. So this is not something that I need to guess from somebody. So the management has not been up to standard.
Okay, dear viewers, we shall be summarizing with the second topic because we don't have time. So at this time, we shall be, gentlemen, maybe at the end when we are concluding, you may have other things to put. We shall be looking at the second topic.